Language Disorders, compiled by Jennifer Lee. Imagine being at a loss for words. A language disorder is an impairment that makes it hard for someone to find the right words and to form clear sentences when speaking. Now imagine being unable to follow a simple set of instructions or struggling with putting thoughts into words, or both. A language disorder is a type of communication disorder. Communication is a process where individuals relate to each other through speech and language. A communication disorder can include a problem with speech, a problem with language, or a problem with both. There are two definitions of communication disorder, the IDEA definition and the AACC definition. IDEA defines a speech or language impairment as a communication disorder, which includes stuttering, impaired articulation, a language impairment, or a voice impairment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. AACC definition describes a language disorder as an impairment of comprehension or use of spoken, written language. Areas affected include phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. The most recent statistics available, provided by the National Institutes of Health in May of 2016, reports that approximately 1 in 12 kids ages 3 to 17 has a communication disorder. This information is for communication disorder as a whole, which includes both speech and language. As these statistics show, the prevalence of communication disorders is more profound in the younger children, especially in the age group 3 to 6 years old, where 11% of children have been diagnosed with a communication disorder of some sort. In addition, boys have an incidence reporting rate of 9.6% compared to girls' reported rate of communication disorders of 5.7%. According to the National Institute of Health, only 3.3% of children ages 3 to 17 years old have been diagnosed with a language disorder lasting longer than 1 week in the past 12 months. According to the National Institute of Health, more than half of the students diagnosed with a communication disorder last year received early intervention services. Language has to do with meanings rather than sounds, as in speech. So a language disorder refers to an impaired ability to understand and/or use words in context. A language disorder is a type of communication disorder, often referred to as a specific learning impairment, or SLI. It can be congenital or acquired and impacts the processing of linguistic information. There are 3 main types of language disorders: a receptive language disorder, an expressive language disorder, or a combination of both. A receptive language disorder often presents itself with a student unable to follow a simple set of instructions or organizing information that is heard. An expressive language disorder often presents itself as a student having difficulty with speaking and expressing thoughts or ideas. A mixed language disorder refers to a student who has difficulty with understanding and using spoken language. Language disorders can be characterized as either primary or secondary. A primary language disorder is one that has no known origin affecting one or several areas of language. The secondary language disorder is present as a result of another disability. The 5 components of language that are affected are phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. English alphabet consists of 44 phonemes, or individual speech sounds. Phonological awareness is the ability to understand and use these individual sounds. Normal developmental progression of phonological awareness occurs. The inability of an age-appropriate student to perform these skills may indicate the presence of a specific learning impairment. Problems with phonology can be categorized as either an articulation disorder, which involves speech production, or a phonological processing disorder, which refers to the inability to learn and apply the basic rules of speech. A morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a word. Additions of free morphemes to words help us determine and change meanings of words and to build new words using prefixes, suffixes, and plurals. Misuse of words is characteristic of a morphological disorder. Examples include, I run really fast, instead of saying I ran really fast, or the child learns in school instead of the children learn in school. A syntactic disorder may be present when a student fails to progress from the use of simple to more complex sentence structures. It is also characterized by a student who continue to confuse word order when forming sentences. Use of the English language can be tricky, as words often have multiple meanings and connotations. A student with a semantic disorder will present with a limited or inappropriate use of vocabulary. The definition of pragmatics includes the social norms of conversation. A student presenting with a pragmatic disorder may have difficulty in using language appropriately based on the setting they are in. Presenting characteristics of a secondary language disorder is linked to the primary disability, which includes intellectual disabilities, emotional behavioral disabilities, learning disabilities, Down syndrome, and autism spectrum disorders. At present, research has been unsuccessful to determine the cause and nature of specific language impairments, as most research has focused on the broader category of communication disorders, which includes both speech and language. There are some congenital causes to consider, such as genetics, family history, and prenatal care. Genetic factors play a role in both primary and secondary language disorders. It has been estimated that approximately 20 to 40% of children with a specific language impairment have a parent or sibling with a language disorder. One study also found that family history was a good predictor in identifying a specific language impairment in children. Acquired causes develop after birth and can include environmental factors, low language exposure, brain trauma, and hearing loss. Developmental milestones in speech and language are important benchmarks to assess a child's progress. Repeated exposure to language skills at home increases their literacy development. One study suggests that children who are late word producers and late word combiners, which are developmental milestones, were more likely to develop a specific language impairment. Additional factors to consider include brain trauma, hearing loss, and symptoms related to other primary disabilities such as Down syndrome or autism. In considering prenatal care, one study showed that increasing folic acid in prenatal nutrition reduced the incidence of specific language impairments. Additionally, brain traumas often cause aphasia, which has a higher incidence in middle to older age populations. Aphasia is a communication disorder, and it's a neurological condition that's caused by damage to portions of the brain responsible for language, but it does not affect intelligence. As language plays such a central role in our daily lives, aphasia can be very challenging. Individuals with aphasia may find it difficult to speak, understand speech, and read and write. Teaching strategies depend on the area of language affected, as well as consideration for the presence of other disabilities. Inclusion, student placement, consistency, and extra time are all modifications to consider. In addition, modeling behavior, giving choices, planning ahead, social skills training, and techniques to improve working memory are accommodations that can be listed on an IEP or 504. Many instructional games, activities, websites, and apps available to help with increasing phonological awareness, vocabulary, and sentence building. Check out this website below. iPads have increasingly made their way into the classroom as instructional tools. Several apps are now available to help students with receptive and expressive language disorders. Here is a list of current apps available for Apple products, as well as software programs available at the following website. Further information about speech and language disorders can be found by contacting the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, or ASHA, as well as the National Aphasia Association. The page offers a local resource as well as information available to parents concerning all types of learning disability. Parents who have concerns about their child's speech and language developmental milestones should check out this website.